Is week 6 of our 12-week xAPI learning cohort. We want to remind you that today's session is recorded so that we can share it out with our with the folks who are not in attendance today. So there will be a recording that goes out with our mailing list. All right, today we're going to be talking about what is learning analytics and how do I do it with Ofer Luft from Kaltura. We're very excited to have you here. Thanks for being here with us today. And then we'll move into cohort business and team check-ins. If you are a presenter for your team, please share what team you will be presenting in the chat so that our producers can give you mic access when we get there. And as of today, the spring 2021 cohort has 583 folks registered. Behind the mics today, you have myself, Jess. I am the xAPI cohort host. We also have Aaron and Jamie. So if you experience any technical issues or need any support, feel free to put a question in the room chat and they'll be able to help you. Just as a reminder, we are in week 6, which means that cohort is at the halfway mark, which is really hard to believe. I can't believe we're already there. Today, we're talking all about learning analytics and seeing some really great examples on what that looks like. Next week, we'll jump into xAPI standards at work with IEEE, and that'll be presented by Shelley Blake Plaque. And then we'll go into creating dashboards and visualizations using xAPI data. And then we'll wrap up our semester with case studies and project team demos. This is the time when I remind you that when we get to project team demos, things don't need to be perfect. You just need to share what you're doing, what you're working on, and that's a great time for you to get feedback from other folks in cohort. So I hope that y'all are thinking about presenting out for those project team demos. All right, with that, it is my pleasure to introduce Ofer, who is going to talk about what is learning analytics and how to do it, and he is coming from Kaltura.
Thank you, Jess. I'll just switch to my deck, if that's okay. May I? Thank you very much. Okay. So hello, everyone. Just a quick disclaimer, since you have these sessions coming up, I'm not going to show you any dashboards or graphs today. Now's a good time to ask for your money back. So before I tell you a bit about myself, I'd love to learn a bit about you guys. So let's run a quick poll using our Kaltura technology. All right, let's see who you guys are, where you guys are coming from, what you guys do, content designers, developers, data analysts in the house, educators. Excellent. Any executives in the house? Yes, I see. All right, very nice. Okay, still content designers in the lead. Nice, a good blend of people. All right, that's good. Okay, thank you. Folks are still answering, maybe are debating on what your role is. Now's a good time to make a decision. All right, I'm going to end the quiz and we'll move on. I have a lot of ground to cover today. And here are the results. Okay, I'm going to switch off my camera to not get too distracted. And we will get started. Okay, so my name is Ofer Luft, and as Jess already knows, I like to say that you pronounce my name is Ofer crying out loud, and I'm the platform consulting lead at Kaltura. We're a video platform, and if you were to ask Gartner or Forrester, we're the market leader in both enterprise and education. We are heavily invested in xAPI and learning analytics as part of our strategy, and I have the privilege of working with customers from many different market segments, and all heavily invested in learning analytics as part of their digital transformation. We'll talk a lot about digital transformation today. And as part of my conversations with my customers, I deliver a webinar series I call Not What You Might Think, where we exchange ideas and insights on digital transformation and I condensed one for you guys that's focusing on learning analytics. As for me, I'm really just a delivery guy. All I do is day in, day out, kind of move these tiny boxes of digital goodness into the digital houses of large enterprises. We provide APIs and widgets that our customers can then integrate directly into their digital platform, and which in many cases is a learning and development platform. And so the question arises, why is a video platform investing in xAPI? And to find out, let's run another quiz. So I'm going to ask you about digital transformation in your organization. And the ask is, who is leading digital transformation in your org? CEO, CIO, CLO, amazing. I'd be curious to hear about that use case. Okay, no active CDOs in our audience. That's interesting. None above. Amy, yes. Amy, feel free to type in the chat if there are other people driving that transformation in your org. What if it's not being led? That's an entirely different conversation. Feel free to reach out. All right, so I'm going to end the quiz, and there's actually an answer for this one. This was not a poll, this was an actual quiz. I'm going to end the quiz and show you the result. So these are the answers that you provided. But at least since 2020, there's been one C-level executive that led the charge. And this is the big C. COVID-19 has led the charge in a few kind of large-scale surveys across Fortune 500 and 5,000 enterprises. COVID-19 has been leading the charge on digital transformation. And it literally started a digital race where every enterprise on the planet now understands that digital and virtual are mission critical. And that really has us living in a new and exciting golden age. And I like to compare this to kind of the golden age of railway. We are effectively living in the age of the virtual railway, golden age of that, where really every enterprise today, every Fortune 500 to 5,000 are either building or rebuilding their digital infrastructure. And at the core of that, one of the core pillars is media. And the reason that media is really at the core of that is that it generates two of the most important things that a digital strategy and strategists are looking for, and it does it better than any other digital asset. And these two things are engagement and analytics. And so what I found in my work with those customers is that when you read digital transformation in articles, in decks, in interviews, etc., what we're really talking about is the transformation of behavior. And it's really all about people, not technology. And I hope that you all agree with me on that. There's so much digital technology out there that, when employees are just having a hard time keeping up. And the biggest priority right now is to upskill and retrain employees, as you all know, on these digital techs. So this is really a learning challenge. And that means that for learning to happen, we need to grab employees' attention. We need to generate enough engagement within those learning programs so they can generate comprehension. And only from there, learning and ideally doing, and that is implementing what they've learned in the workforce, in the workplace, can occur. So if we further kind of lead the witness, we are really talking about engagement, because without engagement, nothing else can occur. And so at the end of the day, what day in, day out, what I see is really kind of subpar engagement experiences. And what I'd like to do is really kind of expand your perception on where mission critical learning really happens and why engagement is so important. So just to give you a sense of some of those, like, where's my GIF? Of what a subpar learning experience does. what it really does, it really drains your engagement juice. So if you're, for example, if you're a patient and you're at the doctor's office and you just learned that unfortunately you have cancer, and as part of the hospital's new patient strategy, you're to co-decide with your care provider on a treatment that's right for you. If you're now given a questionnaire with 40 checkboxes, most chances are that in your current mental and emotional state, you're not going to do so great, because really that questionnaire, whether it's a written form or a PDF on a tablet, is not going to do the job. Just to give you another example, so if you're a deskless frontline worker at a factory and it's time for your quarterly safety webinar and you figure you need to leave the floor, maybe even shut down the machine, go to some room with a TV screen, only to watch an hour of content, which by the time it reaches your factory from HQ, you've already changed your floor plans 3 times. So this broadcast is irrelevant to you and you won't even go the next time. Another example from a completely different area. So if you're a care provider or even a tax advisor and you need to passively watch a 2-hour Zoom session every quarter to stay certified, but your 5-year-old is at home with you because of lockdown, you just enter the live session and shift your attention to other things. So there goes attention, there goes engagement. So you'll still get that continued education credits, but you won't learn anything. And that means that you probably won't learn, if you're a care provider, that there's a new digital tool that your cancer patient can now use at home to get better care. Or if you're a tax advisor, you won't learn about changes in regulations allowing your industry mogul customer to build a factory closer to HQ. So it's really all about engagement. Here we are. So that means that without engagement, you get no comprehension. You'll never get here. You'll never get learning. You'll never get doing. And that means that if you don't get to those steps, that you don't see behavior transformation. And if you don't see behavior transformation, you don't see digital transformation. Okay, so, and from our side, at least what we've found in our work with our customers is there's another way to go about this. And what we've done is we effectively flipped the script. And what we did is we have taken kind of the learning by doing approach. And we highly recommend doing this on your side, regardless if it's video or anything else. And by taking kind of a learning by doing approach, you can really make everything interactive, almost like a game. For example, you can slice that 40-item questionnaire into small bits and place them as quiz questions on the timeline of the video. You can show a dialog box at random intervals during a live stream and have your user confirm they're still watching. Maybe even answer a question just to show their mind is engaged during that live stream. And if they, using air quotes, catch them all, that is, if they actively confirm attendance, answer all those questions during that live stream, only then will they get their pies and get certified. So they get both the credits and the learning. And what you find is that people really want to play those games. They really want to be engaged. They want to do much better at their job. Just to give you an example, we're talking about, and unfortunately I can't mention any customer names, but these are all kind of KPIs and OKRs that we've collected across over the years from many different market segments. I'm talking about 50% reduction in safety incidents, thanks to learning. We're talking about faster progress on a patient's path to wellness. We're talking about 99% active attendance on a 2-hour live stream about changes in compliance regulations, delivered often by a guy kind of like me, maybe with an Israeli accent that's hard to understand, sitting with his camera off, using nothing but text and GIFs in his slides. Still, amazing rates of engagement. So these interactions, these tiny games produce a lot more engagement and therefore more comprehension and therefore more learning. But it also means that the more expressive those engagements are, with all those interactivity that you can now add, the richer and more complex the data that they generate. And there really kind of lies the rub when it comes to learning analytics. So if you're like us, you're probably collecting, you can track number of plays, but in our world, we do more than that. We can actually tell when how much of a video or a live stream someone actually watched. We can even track that they went back during playback of the video and watched a certain part over and over again. So I have another episode in this webinar series that talks about teaching analytics. Maybe we meet again and we get a chance to talk about that. But it's really interesting for the pedagogy team and the content design team to know that someone is watching a certain segment in a video, because that tells them that they may want to create more videos on that certain segment. We also track their active attention using several strategies. Like this virtual room you're in right now is one of our components. And if we had that turned on, I'd be able to see if you're actively with me here in the room, or if you have muted the volume, or if you went to another tab to be on a social network or read the news. We can actually tell that. And we provide those metrics back to the content team so they know that there was a dip in the attention during a live session. And this is well beyond just number of plays. So we also know how to track how much that employee scored in, let's say, question number 4 at 3 minutes 46 seconds into a video quiz that we also know that they're retaking the second time because they got a low overall score the first time. And just to give you a sense of what the context is, we're talking about, for example, technicians who now cannot operate an oil rig because they didn't learn the correct steps to drilling correctly. And if they don't learn it properly, it's going to cost their employer millions of dollars. So they can't touch the equipment before they pass this video quiz. Like, these are really mission critical learning analytics that we need to collect. And it goes beyond that. So we also track, for example, a patient's decisions on what we call an interactive video path. So an interactive video path is kind of a choose your own adventure. And although it's not always a fun adventure, in the case of, let's say, a cancer patient, it could be a faster path to wellness by watching a video intro, for example. Then instead of just passively watching the video all the way through, you now have a choice. You see 2 hotspots on the video, and you get to choose to go with this treatment or that treatment based on what you prefer. And if you choose A or B, it just loads an entirely different scene on the fly. So even though you're starting off on the same path, and cancer patient A would spend the same 5 minutes as cancer patient B would spend watching that video, they each end up watching an entirely different video based on the choices that they make. And from our side, we capture all this data and what they've learned and the decisions that they've made. And really, this is kind of the challenge we face when we work with these outdated learning analytics standards, because when you feed all the richness of our analytics into those old school protocols, you really just get the kind of the lowest common denominator. And that ends up creating a really low fidelity, not of the data, but of the learner, of the person behind the screen who's taking those learning experiences. On the contrary, when we employ xAPI with our engine, and this protocol is so expressive, not only do we make sure that the data doesn't gets lost, we also produce much more meaningful analytics. And these analytics truly capture comprehension, whether it's a video quiz, for example, or the interactive video, and it really builds a more accurate representation of the learner. So really to summarize from my perspective what learning analytics is all about, learning analytics is really about digital representation of us as humans in this big data machine. Okay, so this is, not sure if this is what you expected. If you did hope to see some dashboards or graphs, but I really care about the human behind the screen, interacting and interfacing with those learning experiences. And these learning experiences are either becoming more expressive to meet kind of the changing landscape of the digital enterprise, or they lag behind by being very passive and generating very low engagement. Either way, there lies a challenge. And that's why we continue to promote the use of xAPI. We're actively involved in the standards. We have several partners in that field. And if you have an xAPI project that involves video, feel free to reach out. I'd love to have that conversation. Now, from a format perspective, I wasn't sure how much time it would take me to cover this entire ground. And so I'm going to say thank you regarding kind of segment number 1 of Not What You Might Think. And I'm just going to open this up, open the floor. Jess, from your perspective, do we want to take some questions, or shall I just give a teaser of what episode 2 is like?
We do have one question.
Yes.
What do you recommend for planning and analytics that could be captured when instructional designers storyboard a project?
Okay, so that's a, so I think it really stems from, you mentioned the storyboard project. I would try and envision what the learning path should be. So where the learning is the learner starts and where you want them to end. And then based on that, you can really design like a breadcrumb trail. And at each point in time, you have a milestone. So in other episodes of the series, we talk a lot about adaptive learning. And that is how you can take kind of the analytics captured at each milestone and use that to refine what that learning path is. So I think on that side, it really stems from what kind of media you're using, if at all, what learning path you're building, whether it's one learning path or an adaptive one. And based on that, you can really design the learning metrics and what you're measuring. I hope that answers the question.
Yep, you got some, thank you. Great information about learning milestones and adaptive learning.
Sure. Any more questions from the audience?
I'm not seeing any in the chat yet, but if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat and I'll queue them up for Ofer, and then we can go into part 2.
Nice, sweet. Okay, thank you, Tina. All right, so let's dive into episode 2. And episode 2 is really just going to be a teaser. That's a much bigger chapter, but really just to give you a sense of where this can go. So let's dive in. Again, disclaimer, this is a teaser for episode 2. And we'll also start with a quiz just to make sure that everyone is still here. All right, here we go. So next we're asking, where do you think the best place to capture learning analytics? Okay, big up for the LRS. LMS I see as well. CRM and CXM, that's nice. Third-party specialized learning provider. That's cool. Okay, much more engagement this time. 28, almost. Okay. I'll give you guys a few more seconds to think about this. Okay, LRS is leading by a lot. One more, 5 more seconds, and then we'll show the results. Okay. You're learning how to use the quiz interface better. That's awesome. My mission here is done. Okay, so you can see that, so the majority of you felt that the LRS is kind of the best place to capture all those metrics, and this is where kind of the capturing of the metrics occur. But this too was not a quiz, it was a poll, and I'm actually going to challenge some of those answers, okay? And I'm going to show you what we find working with large enterprises today, actually with more education customers as well. Okay, so most of you really answered, the LRS, the Learning Record Store, or the Learning Management System, or it's everyone's switching from an LMS to an LXP. Maybe it's a CRM. But actually, as you have more and more digital channels, learning is not confined to those systems. What you see is that you actually have many more digital engagement channels where learning can happen. Okay, so it's really like not just the LMS and the LRS. Learning can happen in an employee portal. Learning can happen, sorry, I'm just overly distracted here. Learning can happen during a virtual event or in an interactive webinar, just like this one. Just learned how to use quizzing better. One of the biggest trends in the last few years is embedded learning. And embedded learning really is not sending the user to the LMS or to the LXP to get if they get stuck. So you don't go to just pause your work, go to the LMS to get unstuck with a knowledge gap. Instead, what you do is you bring the learning to the context of where the user is, and you provide them the right how-to right there and then, whether they are right there in the field, if they're a desk class worker in a factory, whether they are working on another digital tool. So instead of them getting stuck in some case management system with what to do next, you bring the learning content right there and then by embedding that into their context. Podcasts are becoming an amazing way to learn something new. And what's great about podcasts, as you probably know, is that you can learn while your other senses are working on something else, like cooking dinner. And the list of these kind of increasingly richer digital channels is really only growing. And to expand kind of the mind even further, especially now that 5G is about to unleash millions of additional smart devices into our physical and let's call this physical digital hybrid lives, whether it's like smart healthcare devices or smart monitors, if I'm a truck driver, everything, more and more data is going to be generated. So there's no reason for learning not to occur in those contexts as well. So most of my customers, what they do is they understand that there's no one tool to do the job. And what they do on their side is they employ kind of a best of breed approach. They combine and integrate several tools into kind of a best of breed digital engagement platform. Some of this is homegrown. Some of this really kind of mashes up several different tools and components. And what they do through that, it allows them to create this holistic pedagogy across these channels. And it allows them to create a holistic 360 view of the learner. And that learner could be a patient, as I mentioned. It could be that remote deskless train conductor in a remote train station. It could be a new customer going through onboarding and enablement of a new product. It could even be a mechanic working on the newest model of a tractor in a foreign dealership. We have a few automotive customers, and from their perspective, if a team in a dealership does not know how to quickly fix the latest and greatest heavy equipment or even a car, or if a salesperson doesn't know how to sell it, learning dramatically affects that dealership's performance. So again, learning is becoming more and more mission critical. And then the question becomes, if I do use all these digital channels and I collect all these metrics, so that means that I have all these learning analytics, the question really becomes, what do I do with that? So now what? What do I do with all these metrics? And this is really where I leave you with a cliffhanger. And this is really all to be discussed in future episodes. As I mentioned, this is where we talk about adaptive learning and how to leverage some of those metrics in a productive way. This is really not just about looking at those metrics, but really employing them in. Okay, so hopefully this I covered a lot of ground. I hope I didn't overload or saturate you. I hope this was engaging. And we're collecting all this data in those quizzes and polls. And I hope this was at least engaging and enjoying. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you. And I think that we have Amy teed up a question around as an example of providing a QR code that folks can access content with, but I'm not sure where that related to the conversation that you were just having.
Mm-hmm.
So Amy, if you want to clarify that question in the chat for me, I'll cue that up for you. And if there are any other questions, please put them in the chat. Yeah, related to the context delivery. Is providing a content delivery, the QR code a way for folks to access content, and could we get some analytics from that?
Yeah, of course. I would say that QR code is kind of a small but a big thing these days, and it's really all about what it generates, because you can really drop a sticker with a QR code on anything and everything. And one interesting example is that we've used these QR codes to blend video with augmented reality. So we supported a customer in one of their employment events, and they really wanted to have all the attendees have some takeaway learning materials with them as they joined these conferences. This was well before COVID hit. We still had the luxury of meeting in a physical space, and you had these like big posters and boards with different calls to action, but it was difficult for our customer to figure out what did they actually learn in that session. So what we did is using one of our partners that provides augmented reality on top of 2D surfaces, we've added a QR code on those posters. And there was an application that was used as a companion for that conference. All the attendee had to do was point their mobile device at the QR code that would load an experience for them, and that would layer videos and documents on that physical poster. And they were able to click those links, and those links were tracked, and it really kind of converted from the physical to the virtual. And it's really just one example of how you can use a QR code. You can use that really with anything and everything. So it's a great question. QR codes are amazing.
We did that at an xAPI party. Matt Cleaver did that at an xAPI party where we were learning how frequent and how to water plants in the office. And we had QR codes on the plant, and you could see what type of frequency. Nice. So I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat. If you have any more questions, go ahead and send those now. If not, I'm going to move into team updates. Thank you so much for helping us think about how different platforms are thinking about learning analytics and leaving us with a teaser for next time.
Next time. Thank you, Jasmine. Thanks for having me. Bye, guys.
No, all righty. Bye. Alrighty, so we are right at week 6, and teams are busy. I'm seeing lots of activity in Slack. I'm seeing lots of activity in. I do too. My plants are. Winter is not a fun time for my plants at my house. And I'm seeing lots of activity in GitHub. So I see teams are digging into details, scoping, assigning tasks, iterating, asking for help in the main channel. That's a huge aspect of this is the collaboration and working out loud with one another. So that's where we are. We'll be moving into demonstration soon, and I want to reiterate that things don't need to be perfect in order to demo them. So as you're thinking about your teams and demoing out in the last few weeks of cohort, please make that consideration. I'll be putting an ask out next week for folks to sign up. All right, so I'm going to hop on over to our GitHub, and I know that we're going to have Martin going up first. So let me change my screen. As a reminder, our GitHub team page is right on our xAPI Cohort website. You go to the GitHub Teams tab. And Martin, your team storyline engagement, correct? I can't hear you. I still can't hear you. I see you though. Oh, there you are. I think I heard you.
How about now?
I hear you fine.
Okay, sorry. Okay, yeah, so Team xAPI and live code.
Okay.
Okay, so we've been having our meetings regularly on Wednesdays now at 30. We've got a couple of concepts that we want to implement, and one is a Bookmarklet app, and that Joan is the one taking the lead on that. She's going to be working on a UI for what she has, for the idea around that. The second concept is something that has an ecosystem that can include PDF and video, and that's Ofer's presentation today was really interesting around with some ideas of how we might be able to do that. And the other project that's happening is associated with that is making the library so that we can send the xAPI statements in live code. So basically we're using live code to become the application, the statement provider for the LRS. So I've been working on the library. Joan is going to start working on the UI for her part. The last meeting we had a couple of demos. Andrew did a demo of how to actually do that, how to display PDFs, images, other types of files in a browser, which you can embed in a live code project. And this is where our help request is. In live code, you can send JavaScript statements to the browser window, and you can also add JavaScript handlers to the window and then get data back. None of us are really that into JavaScript. So if anyone's interested in helping out around that area, and primarily what we want to do is see the scrolling of the PDF or control the scrolling of the PDF. So if someone's interested in that, and that's basically where we're at. I don't know if I've forgotten anything, but there's the, yeah, that's sort of where we're at right now.
All righty. Thank you, Martin. All right, next. And I'm going in order of those who commented in the Slack, not in the order of the screen. I mean, not in Slack. Those who commented in the room chat. So we have Team Slack was next with Brian. So Brian, if you want to go ahead and give your update.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we confused you there, just using Slack in the team name. It gets a little meta at times when you're in Slack talking about Slack. Anyway, we had a meeting, a team meeting yesterday with a few members of the team. We talked a little bit more about our detailed use case. It was pretty general before, and we decided to distill it down a little bit so that we can focus on essentially one certain action within Slack that we want to measure with xAPI, and decided that a message posted in a channel is where we're going to start, and we're going to focus on getting a detailed actor, putting together a verb and an object, at least to start, hopefully get that connection going, and then expand from there. Our plans for the next 2 weeks. Next week, we're going to put together a complete xAPI or XAP that is triggered by a message that's posted in Slack that then creates an xAPI statement in Watershed. And then the week after that, we're going to explore a previously created GitHub project with Slack and xAPI, and do a working session to get that installed, see how successful it is, and then go from there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brian. Next, we have Team Visualize Learner Behavior with Kieran. All right, am I seeing you? if while we're getting that team up and running, we want to go on to team on the job perk with Emily.
Hey everybody.
Hello. Hello.
So our team last week, we determined that the best way for us to share our on-the-job training was going to be through Google Forms, due to some of the limitations with being able to do offline data collection with Storyline, which is where we had initially thought we would start. So we spent the last week making a bunch of fake data. And today, because we meet directly after this meeting, we are going to be integrating that data into Watershed and connecting it to our Absorb LMS to hopefully start seeing everything come together. So we're excited that it's all moving along.
Awesome. Thank you, Emily. Next, we have Team Goodish, and if we can give Kieran moderator rights so that they can present out. Team Goodish with Miranda. Let me give, it looks like, all right. Amy, did you want to, okay. Miranda also needs some mic access. I just gave you access, Miranda. You should be able to hop on.
Yes, hello.
Hello, there you are.
Okay, apologies. I updated today, so it'll show up on GitHub eventually. For Team Goodish, we met for a third time last Friday. We looked at the information we had thus far, meaning assumptions, targeted behavior, question ideas, and potential data we could get, and we decided we have enough to move forward and start structuring our bot and the content within it. So we looked at a preliminary outline, everyone gave input and suggestions, and right now team members throughout the week are writing text, questions, feedback, and we're starting to build it out, which is pretty exciting. At the moment, we don't need support, although shout out to Matt Cleaver for addressing some questions of mine. I had a panicky moment, middle of the week. So thank you for that. What we hope to accomplish this next week, we're gonna just finish our draft A of our content and drop it into a prototype so we can test it out and refine it. And then we're going to discuss what statements we want to construct, dig deeper into where the bot will live in the process of sourcing for candidates and look at a couple different HRIS.
Awesome. Thank you, Miranda. And I think Kieran got all hooked up. So I'm going to go back to visualizing learner behavior. I see you here. But I'm not hearing you. So, Amy, did you have an update that you wanted to share? I made you a moderator on behalf of Team SLR Task.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, so we're a little bit slow getting organized. I have set up meetings on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. EST. Anyone's still welcome. The team could use a little support if you're interested in trying to figure out how to create that statement forwarding and feedback loop. The content has been drafted. That we're going to build it in Domino 1 to get the xAPI calls in there. And it's just a matter of like, do we need a middleware for listening to those statements? And that's the part where we have to do some figuring out. So please feel free to join the team.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And one more time, do we want to try? Otherwise, we'll hop into and talk about the xAPI party, and maybe you can put your update in the chat, Kieran, so that we can still hear from your team. But it looks like you have your update on GitHub if anybody wants to review there. And if you have any needs from Cohort, feel free to put that in the chat and put an ask out. It looks like their next steps are writing programs that will pluck out data from the LRS. And for analysis, and they're looking ahead to analysis, and we'll have an update for how that will work. So thank you for getting your updates in, team. I'm going to switch my screen back over and go back to our slide deck. So we do have some updates about the xAPI party in the L&D download. I don't know if Megan wants to hop on and share, or you want me to cover some of this, Megan, but our xAPI party and download. Okay, I'm going to make you live, Megan.
I'm alive.
You're alive.
I'm a real toy now. Anyway, sorry about that. Yeah, so xAPI and party and download are a really fun kind of coming together. Let's start with xAPI party, right? So xAPI cohort happens, it's 12 weeks. We end with demos. They're quick demos to people who've kind of heard your story all along through the 12 weeks, right? And we love those demos. xAPI party is separate but related, and it's basically a free conference about xAPI. And there are education sessions just like a regular conference. Jess and I are working on kind of how we're going to pull this off from a platform perspective. Going to, of course, try something new, but have opportunity for lots of discussion, easy discussion, and conversation throughout the day. It'll run about 6 hours on Friday the 14th. Do we have the day here? It's really important that you know that it is Friday, May 14th. There we go. There's our date. But guess what? I know the lady who makes the program for xAPI Party, and I can guarantee you that if an xAPI cohort team wants to demo, there is a spot for you. I can also guarantee you that the rest of the world would love to see your demo. And it doesn't have to be a perfect finished, polished demo, just like the demos that you're doing at the end of cohort in weeks 11 and 12. You get a little more time. Take 20 minutes, you take 45 minutes if you want a whole session. People like hearing the process. People like seeing what it actually takes to do this. And if you're here, you are living what it actually takes to do this. So this is super cool. The other thing I'll tell you is that if you are looking at getting out and doing more conferences, and that's part of your professional development, and you're going to be doing a session here, this session here can be part of your professional resume when you go and pitch to conferences. By the way, folks, your DevLearn conference proposals are due tomorrow, and the ATD ICE for next year will open soon. Just telling you. So the xAPI, thank you, Jess, for posting the call for proposals. You'll find it a very, very simple process. And Matt has for you here a sampling of what happened last time, so you can see kind of what the event is all about, what kinds of sessions come in with xAPI Party. Alongside this, we do something called the Download Conference. So that'll be the same day, the same platform. So it's kind of like getting two conferences at once. You get to go and flip from session to session and do whatever it is that you are interested in. So there's lots going on. Share with your friends. You do not have to have been to cohort to come to party and download, and vice versa. And I am trying to think what else I have missed, but it's a super, oh, and it's free. Did I tell you it's a free conference? So that's also super fun.
Awesome. Thank you, Megan. And this is our 14th and 16th. So we're excited for that. And some good stuff to know as we wrap up a little early here. And I do have Kimmy Horn for us this week. It is Women's History Month, and so I'm going to center on jazz musicians who are women. So if you want to hang out and learn a little bit about Kimmy Horn, who I didn't know was a Detroit artist, we'll have that. But we'll be here next week at 2 o'clock with Shelley Blake Plack, who's going to talk about xAPI standards at work with IEEE. And then, as Megan mentioned, our xAPI party is May 14th. It is completely online from 11 to 5 p.m. The registration will be open by the end of this week on our xAPI Cohort website. We know that this is not going to accommodate all global time zones, but as with all cohort web sessions, the sessions will be recorded and available afterwards for if folks want to check it out at a time that's good for them. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to email us at xapicohort@torrancelearning.com or message me or anyone else in Slack. With that, have a great rest of your Thursday, a great weekend, and get out there and continue to make the things. With that, I'm going to play a little Kimmy Horn to leave us this session, and have a great Thursday.